Welcome to another edition of As Far as You Know, a podcast started by me, your host, Darah. If you're wondering what is this podcast all about, it's designed to talk to everyday people who have overcome amazing obstacles and hurdles in their life, and the chance for them to really tell their story about what those obstacles were, those hurdles, to talk a little bit about the strategies that they deployed to get through those, for the end part to see what they've accomplished along the way. So I'm delighted today to have with me James Brooks. James, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
And James,
Great to be
you're
here.
in Florida now, is that right?
Yeah, South Florida, Fort Lauderdale area.
I understand. Born and raised in Florida.
Yes, one of the few natives.
Yeah, no, that's great. Great. Well, we're delighted to have you here to be a podcast guest. This is episode number 7. For those of you who are joining for the first time, you get a chance to watch this via YouTube on the As Far as You Know YouTube channel, or you can join our Spotify As Far as You Know and catch any of the episodes today, James's episode today, or any of the previous ones we've done. So we're glad you're here. It's a chance for us to get to know James a little bit, get him to share his story, and then talk a little bit about some of the exciting things that he's been involved with recently and kind of where his life is headed. So, James, why don't you give everybody a chance to learn a little bit more about you and who you are?
Yeah, I'm pretty much a artist on the side. I work full time. I currently reside in the South Florida area. I've been doing art. I pretty much had the talent, just really never pursued it until a couple years back. And glad to be here. And
Yeah. So, James, your story goes way back, really kind of started
yeah,
when you were born. You were telling me a little bit about just things that you experienced before you even knew you were experiencing them, starting off with just premature birth. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
yeah, I was born a pound and a half at that time. That was, it just really, from what I was told by my parents, is that, I'm a living miracle, and not many preemies lived, you know, maybe within a few days, but a few next to me probably passed on, and I was one of the few that survived. And at that time, technology was, wasn't it is today. I had tubes in my head and my ears. I had to constantly be monitored to make sure I was breathing. I came out normal as a healthy boy, and pretty much a living miracle.
Hmm.
It was definitely tough because they had me at the hospital for numerous amount of months until October. I was finally discharged from there and was able to go home.
Hmm.
So doctors told my family that, hey, since he's born early, he could be blind, mute, deaf, paralyzed, all those things. But by the grace of God, I can move my hands and feet and talk and everything. So yeah,
Wow. Miracle
uh huh,
baby for sure. You
yeah,
mentioned to me that you were born to young parents. My guess is a hospital stay like that's not cheap, and that probably created even more hardships maybe with your family. And just, I know you don't remember any of that, obviously being so young, but I'm sure that was a challenge for them as well.
It was, from what they told me, is that they had like a monitor with them. So if I stopped breathing, they would have to go to the hospital just to make sure I was breathing. I mean, it was a lot of sleepless nights. My mother, she was just praying for me to live, and rest of my family. I mean, at that time, it's like, what do you do? And both of my parents are in high school, so it's like, okay, we have a kid now, so I had to grow up fast. So
Yeah,
it was definitely tough for me, but also for them as well.
sure.
Extremely tough.
Yeah, just bringing someone into the world, even if you feel like you've got all the resources in the world,
Yeah.
it's a challenge, much less if you're young and certainly with the challenges you had and probably wondering whether you're even going to live, at some point and what your health
Yeah, I
is
mean,
or
it was like one of those things where you got an angel one side and a grim reaper on the other side, So
not.
it's like rolling the dice, But thank God that I'm alive and I'm able to do normal things, and I still got the dent in there where the tubes were in my head. So I'm more thankful now, and I cherish the story of where I came from now than I did when I was younger, because I didn't really care too much, but now I do. So yeah.
Do you have or did you have any side effects growing up when you were young? Was there anything, or did everything as soon as you got to the
My
point to be a healthy child, it was fine?
I was a healthy child, but I developed problems because my immune system at that time wasn't developed until, later on. I used to get a lot of, sicknesses, ear infections, common colds almost every day. I remember I had to use an inhaler just to, because I had asthma, I guess. It wasn't severe, but I had an inhaler. I also used to get a lot, bronchitis, those type of things. Normal kids would get it every, 2, 3 months or whatever, but I would get it almost quite a bit. So that was a challenge.
Now, growing up, how would you describe, now you've overcome these as a miracle baby, all these medical obstacles that you had, which
Yeah.
was awesome.
Yes.
What was it like just, through your early days being a child as you got into middle school and high school? How would you describe those?
They were hard. I just felt like I had to be everybody else. In middle school you want to be like those kids that, are the life of the party or they're just chattering away. It was hard for me to make friends because I was very shy. I was very timid. I was more of a loner than anything. I felt like I didn't fit anywhere. I excelled in art, that drew a lot of kids over. Like, oh, you're so cool, you're so talented. Can you paint me? Can you draw me? And
Right.
at that time, I was like, oh, wow, this is great. And high school was the same thing. I was super thin, big hands, big feet, those awkward years. Uh, I went to a private school, so I wasn't in public school in high school. So that was a challenge in itself. It's like, oh, you're special because you go to a private school. Well, no, because middle school I wasn't learning anything really.
Yeah.
Um, my attention span wasn't that great per se. It just I didn't want to learn. It's just goes back to since I was born early, the things that normal kids would learn quickly, I didn't pick up on it quickly.
Hmm.
So I learned very slowly. So teachers were like, "Well, we can't do anything with him. You might as well just put him in a special ed school or something." In high school, I did graduate with a regular diploma. My
Hmm.
mom had to fight for that.
Hmm.
Yeah, she didn't want a special diploma from me. She wanted a high school diploma.
Sure.
So I was like, okay. So
Did
she
the normal subjects, your history, math, science, did you struggle with those? Did they feel like,
Science, I did not struggle. Science, I found it very interesting. PE, I was always athletic. Lunch, I loved, even though it's not a period. But for me, I loved it. But art, hands down, I loved it. Math was definitely a challenge for me because to me it was like, even through high school, college, I was like, I just don't see myself using this type of you know because I knew like I wanted to be somebody. I just didn't know yet. Math was to me it was like reading Japanese. I just didn't understand it. I didn't get it. Simple things like writing a check. I mean, just things that normal kids would do was hard for me, and I had to learn later.
hmm,
Um, growing up in high school, I didn't have a father figure to really teach me the easy stuff.
hmm,
So I had to learn very, my early 30s. I'm not going to afraid to admit it. I mean, I had to learn the things that kids would learn at a young age into my 30s of how to,
right?
save money, how to, do basic things, which I should have
Life.
learned. But yeah, life just kind of, you know, happened that way.
Yeah. Now you
So,
mentioned that you were an only child, correct?
yes, yeah,
My assumption is then like the being isolated was a
yes.
feeling that you probably had. I mean, A, isolated in your own family because you're the only child, but B, because of some of these maybe social barriers and just
And
not
I
necessarily.
still, I still have it. Honestly, I trying to get out of that, but isolation for me, once you get comfortable in it, you don't want to go back to being sociable. To me, I still struggle with that
Mhm.
aspect because I am sociable, but there's times where I slowly draw myself out of that realm. I mean, I've always been like that, but yeah, I mean, painting really is an escape for me.
Mhm.
Um,
Do you define yourself? Could you define yourself in the world of being introvert or extrovert, or does it depend on the situation?
I think it depends on the situation. I'm more of an introvert, but I can be extrovert. If I've known people long enough for a few years, you can't get me to shut up. But if I don't know anybody, I'm as quiet
Mhm.
as a pin needle, like dropping on
Mhm.
the floor. I mean, you wouldn't even know if I was there.
Yeah.
Like in the shadows, you know what I mean? I was never the type of person, or even as a kid, to be up front and center, having the spotlight. I was more behind the scenes. Kind of still am like that, but slowly weaning my way out of that to really be honest and open, not just with myself, but others as well. So,
Yeah. Well, and I think, people sometimes label introverts as like negativity in some kind of negative way. I think it really, to me, the definition of introvert or extrovert is how you get your energy. Sometimes you get your energy by being in solitude and just getting yourself in a way that gets you to be motivated and ready to go. And other times you need your energy around people. Sometimes it just depends on.
yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say I was totally antisocial. I had friends
Hmm.
that were extroverts, but for me, my social battery was very short. You know, I don't mind being sociable for a few hours, but after that few hours, it's like I want to go home and collect my thoughts and just process everything that's happened. So that's how I am. My mom, my mother, she's an extrovert. She's from New York, so she's very sociable and very outgoing. Me, I'm the opposite.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's interesting, James, because many of the guests I've had that come on that talk about hurdles that they've had, a lot of it stems from their growing up, their childhood years. And the interesting
yeah,
piece, I guess we had on recently, talked about how they felt isolated, how they felt like they were not like other people, and they felt this almost like feeling as if they're weird inside. Like, I just feel weird. I'm not like everybody else. Now, that guest happened to move, 5 or 6 high schools. And so they never got a chance to form this friendship. But it almost sounds like you had some similar feelings yourself, is that I'm not quite fitting in. I'm not quite like the other, the cool kids or whoever it happens to be, like these cliques that happen to form, right? The jocks, however you want to label people,
right, right.
right? My assumption is that also kind of, when you're in that situation and you're young and you're just trying to figure it out, and you feel like there's like you're almost inept or you're not quite there or there's something missing, it does make you internalize things a lot.
It really does. It also makes you question about yourself too as time goes on. But it also, I'm proud to say that it discovered many things that I didn't thought I had before.
Hmm.
So I'm not gonna bash myself for being antisocial, which I'm not.
Hmm.
It's just, being raised in certain situations and circumstances that kind of developed that. But it's not that I'm standoffish or I don't want to talk to you. It's just that's how,
It's your preference. Yeah.
right. And, others, it's like they may take offense to that, but it's like there's times where I don't want to be sociable and there's times where I want to be sociable. It's just you can't force somebody to drink wine if they don't like it. So,
Yeah. Well, I think that, again, the common theme to some of that is that over time people start to realize that they're not quote unquote weird inside, that they're not
right.
these outcasts, that they're really a lot more similar to everybody else than they realize. And a lot of times they have this uniqueness about them that actually makes them stand out over time in something that they jump into, which is a little bit about where you landed, which is with your art. But before we get into the art piece and learn a little bit more, because it's pretty exciting what you've been doing, talk about that transition. So once you left high school, you graduated, got your diploma.
Right.
What's next for you?
I started working, at that time I needed a job. So I started working at a grocery store, a pretty popular chain. That actually saved me from being antisocial. I had to be social because of my position, bagging groceries.
Mhm.
You have to say hello, how are you, things like that, and that really got me out of my shell. And towards college, going to AI, meeting people from all over the world, that was the best. And I missed that because you got people like you that love the same thing as you do, and it was a magical time for a few years, and that's when I really had a lot of professors, or a few professors, tell me that I had talent there, that you should pursue it. I just really never took it seriously at that time.
Now, was that a school primarily for art, or just you took art classes while you were there?
That was a school actually primarily for art, and I took art classes there. I was a student with a associate, I believe.
Okay.
So yeah, I was there for about 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So
And kind of going back a little bit in time, when did you first recognize that you had this artistic ability? Like, do you remember a time when you started doing things that you realized that you enjoyed this?
I think it was after college.
Oh, really?
During college,
Okay.
it was more of a self, discovery over time because a lot of professors, we had to do assignments and art assignments. I was like, whatever. But I think while I was in that transitional after college, okay, well, what do I do now? I'm still working.
Hmm.
I was developing depression at that time, and I was very deeply depressed because I didn't know what I wanted to be. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And then I was sitting out in my art studio at the time. I made it into an art studio because I lived in a townhouse that had 3 bedrooms.
Hmm.
So the third bedroom was an art studio, and I was just sitting out there just thinking, for like an hour or 2 hours. I'm like, and I don't know what happened. A voice says, "Why don't you start painting again?"
Hmm.
And I'm like, I haven't painted in like over 20 something years since I was 5 years old, 6 years old. I mean, I
Yeah.
did things in college and enhanced the talent a little bit, but I left it.
Yeah.
And I started to do that, and it was such an experience that I was like, whoa, this
Hmm.
is really cool.
Hmm.
And I kept it a secret. I kept it a secret. My
Why is
friends,
that? Why'd you not want to share that with anybody?
well, because they saw this and they
Hmm.
thought, oh, he's, working out. He looks like he belongs, and as a police officer or law or, cage fighter,
Hmm.
because I had like this attitude, like I was a little bit stuck up.
Hmm.
Thought I knew everything at the time, but there was something there that there was, I think because it was a softer side of me, I didn't want people to know.
Hmm.
So painting kind of gives off that
Hmm.
softer
Yeah.
feel and that
Shows emotion, right? Yeah.
emotion. So I was more of the tough guy, so to speak, and I didn't want to give off that vibe. Oh, he's gotten soft or whatever. I was like, you know what? I'm going to share on Facebook a post of my artwork, and I was blown away about with the whole. I mean, my friends at the time, they didn't even know I painted. They didn't even know they were like, "Wow, James, this is really good," and it just pretty much took off. I had a lot of comments. I had a lot of um, positive feedback, and that's pretty much, as they say, the rest is history, and that's how it began.
So
And
that lit a spark. You already had
yeah,
certainly the talent, you had an interest, you
right,
delved back into it, and then you really showed your vulnerability if you think about it, because
yeah,
for you to put yourself out there, I think we all, just like in a podcast like this, we can talk about our stories. That makes us a little bit vulnerable. We feel that people will
right.
judge, and especially when you're younger and you're trying to make impressions on people, and all of a sudden you decide, I'm just going to post something on Facebook. So that was, I guess, a delightful shock to you. I'd imagine that.
It was because if you do something for the first time, you don't know how the public's going to react to it, and you just don't know what kind of feedback you're going to get from it. So I was a little bit nervous about that. I was a little
Mhm.
bit hesitant about that, but I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do it, see what happens. So
Yeah.
well, I'm glad I did.
Do you remember what you posted? What your
It
piece
was
was?
one of the frog paintings. I framed it myself. I cut out a piece of cardboard and I framed it
Hmm.
myself. I did all the works and everything, and I still have it actually. So it's from 2020, late 2013, 2014, around there. It's the glass, of course, is kind of broken, but it's
Yeah.
still in a frame and whatnot. But yeah, that's
Now, how old were you when this, like roughly, would you say, when you talk about
I would
this?
say about 26,
Okay.
25,
Yeah.
roughly. Yeah,
And so as you're still trying to find, your identity, who you are, what you're going to do, this ignites that spark. And
yeah,
again, just to kind of refresh your past, as you dabbled in art, you went to college, took art classes, but
right.
you didn't graduate from the art school, correct? You still
Right. I actually, even after that, I was transferred to a community college for about 5 years as a non-degree student. Then they were saying, hey, you need to take a degree. I'm like, okay, great. So I went for my associates again. Took courses that I really felt that didn't make sense. And of course, other, naysayers say, oh, you have to have a degree, and to,
Right.
it looks good on you if you have a degree and whatnot. But I pretty much was living that quote unquote bubble. Um, until a few years later, my mom's boyfriend, and I'll get into that a little bit, but he was saying, hey, you can just follow your dreams. You don't need a piece of paper, which
Yeah.
it's good for other people, but for me, I was just more of a free spirit of like, hey,
Mhm.
there's unlimited ways to do what I do. So
Right.
you know
So what did you do once you got that spark a little bit? What was happened next in terms of your artwork?
it just pretty much nothing really happened. I just developed my craft over time. Not living in a house with no AC for a couple months. That was tough. But talk about painting with blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, yeah, I was
Literally.
sweating up a storm, but producing some of the most
Well,
amazing
in
paintings.
Florida, yes, I could only
Uh
imagine.
huh. So that was a challenge, but it really brought the grit and drive to really know, hey, I have something here. I got to keep going with this. That to me was, and later on, I didn't get noticed until Facebook and whatnot. I got invited to like a church event where I was one of the painters, and
Hmm.
they had music going on, and and it was on Saturdays in the mornings. I would go show my painting, describe it to the people that were there, and I remember one lady told me, I haven't painted in 30 years, but your painting brought back life and motivation to me to paint again. And I'm
Wow.
like, oh, well, that's great. So I'm glad.
Yeah.
And that's what pretty much even more to like, hey, okay, I can
Started to
paint.
develop more meaning just beyond just your own,
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's touching other people as well.
Absolutely.
So at
Yes.
this point, when you're doing all these paintings, are they just kind of trial and error? Are they staying in your house? Or are you selling some? What is that? What does
I
that?
wasn't selling at the time. I felt like at that time I was just collecting paintings, just doing them. And for me, it was just like I just felt like I wasn't. It was a transitional phase for me, but I felt like I wasn't being taken as serious. But over time, I started to post on Facebook more, and I started to use this app at the time. It was Instagram. Now it's commonly known, but before it was new.
Hmm.
So I started posting artwork on there because I'm not a techie guy. So I started to you know develop that niche over time as well.
Hmm.
So that was practice as well.
Sure. Yeah. And you're still working at this point, still trying to, make a living, but also just dabbling on the side.
Yeah, eventually I definitely want to further my art career. I definitely see there's a lot more potential now. My eyes are a lot more
Mhm.
open than they were before. Just a lot of opportunities. So yeah, a lot of opportunity in that field. It's great.
So talk about, you had some formalized training through a little probably through secondary school and post secondary through your college, but a lot of this really has been self taught. Have you felt like you've been able to hone your skills? Like, what is that? How have you continued? Is it just trial and error to get better?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe, the more you practice and the more you hone the skill that you're talented in and whatnot, I think it really definitely makes a difference, trial and error. I am a perfectionist when it comes to art, and I try to just leave that to the side and just really just paint out of just what I feel and just out of openness
Hmm.
and just let all that go and just start, you know, just
Hmm.
paint.
At what point, now that you've started to get a little recognition online, at what point did you feel like that you really, like, this was your thing? Was there a point in time where there was like a tipping point where you realized, I'm actually pretty good at this, and this is really what is my creating my identity a little bit and basically filling my cup?
I think it was when I actually signed up a couple years back to a business course in Sunrise, Florida. I was working for another grocery chain at the time, and I was, doing full time. on Saturdays, entrepreneurship. So that really, they brought artists in, they brought a banker in, a lawyer in, and things like that, which I had no idea that an artist needed, and also grants and things like that, and just really opened my eyes to the endless possibilities of art. Even the program I'm in at the Coral Springs Art Museum, they really opened my eyes and allowed me to put my work and even sell some for charities and display my work for the public, which was great. So.
Now you had a bit of a breakthrough event at this Coral Springs event. Is that right? A piece of work that.
Yeah, that really was. It's funny because a fellow artist actually got me the position I'm at the job that I'm at now. She's a fellow artist as well, and we actually met over there. She didn't go to the event, but she was there for a couple hours. But yeah, the Coral Springs Art uh, the city had an event going on and I signed up for it. I got an email for it. I decided to bring some pieces that I had and it was great. It just literally took off. And when I did that show for the city of Coral Springs, that was like, wow, this is great. All the
Yeah.
eyes were seeing what I did. And
Is it just amazing to realize you're putting all this energy into something and then realizing all these people have such an affinity for it, like they
well,
really
it's
enjoy your
it's
work.
you don't count the money, you count the connections. And to me, it's like just having eyes to see what I do and to get notoriety, that to me is awesome. It's great.
Mhm.
So I really enjoy that. And that's the best part. After that, started doing more shows. Past April of this year, did a showing at the Gallery Mall in Sunrise. So that was a lot of fun. That was awesome.
That's great.
Um, I was in the Pelican newspaper the year before last year.
Hmm.
So that was really cool. And then not too long ago, I'm in a magazine that's coming out July 10th.
Oh, wow.
So yeah,
Fantastic.
so it's great.
What does that look like on a day-to-day basis with you now? Do you typically paint
I feel
every
like
day?
it's just endless possibilities. I feel like I just motivates me more to continue my craft and to continue
Hmm.
practicing in that. You never stop learning, and there's always endless opportunities. Just like it is endless opportunities to make money, there's endless opportunities in the art field than what people realize. And it's just a really great avenue for me. It's very expressive, colorful, and it's to me, it's amazing all around.
What inspires you as far as what you paint, your
I
subjects?
think, I think life, um, life in general. I truly believe, dreams that I get. I use, that to me. I usually paint from dreams at times.
Hmm.
I think certain situations, you can get pretty much inspiration from anywhere.
Hmm.
I usually get them from either movies I've seen or movies I haven't seen that I want to see, or animals, certain ways that they look, certain shadows and things like that, or just beautiful scenery, that's like, okay, I gotta take a picture of that. I'm gonna paint when I get home. So
Hmm.
it can spark like that, or it can just happen in various ways.
And is most of your painting, is it all memory? Is it come from like a picture of something that you'll try to duplicate?
Yeah, it's mostly from memory. It's a little bit of both, but it's also from, you pretty much.
Just any kind of resource you have that has a picture of something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I know those on YouTube, we talked about this leading into this. I wanted to get
Yes.
a chance for you, the long awaited display of a piece of your artwork. So if you're on Spotify, you're going to check over on the YouTube side to see this. But could you share a piece that you brought with you today and talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I would love to. So this painting, I'm sure everybody's going to be wanting a bagel. This is called bagels. So these are not donuts. So these are bagels. These are actual bagels.
Hmm.
This painting just really represents how the start of taking my time,
Hmm.
really put an effort in, and it just really just makes you want to have a bagel with cream cheese.
Yeah. Oh, that's a
So
great.
I love this painting. It's one of my favorites. It's sentimental to me because this is truly how I developed my style, and then from there it just took off and developed over time. But I
Now,
finally
how
found
old
an
is that
idea.
piece?
Oh gosh, it's maybe close to at least over 10 years,
Wow.
I would say.
Hmm.
So it's Yeah.
If you had to
Well,
do that piece over again, you think it would look much different?
absolutely, yes. I
Mm-hmm.
would think it would look a lot crispier, cleaner,
Mm-hmm.
more, you know, my, you know,
Just developing your style.
pretty much. It would
Yeah.
definitely be a lot more than this one.
Yeah, well, it's a beautiful piece as it is, and I don't see how much it could improve. But I know that your craft improved over time. For something like that, if you were, say, to do it today, how long would something like that take you to do? Like just
Probably
an
about roughly hours, weeks,
mm-hmm,
a couple weeks. Depends on, you know, the day and
mm-hmm,
you know, like I says, it's like writing a book. Sometimes you'll do half of it in one day, and the other half you just do like, and that's it. I mean,
yeah,
you
one
know, it's
stroke, and that's
writing,
all
it's
you can do.
typing, it's you know, it's like writing a book. You do 7 pages, and it's all up in here, and you're just typing away and whatnot. And then other days you're blank.
And then at one point, you may be doing it up until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, maybe because you just feel the groove, probably.
I've done that before where I literally woke up in the middle of the night and I just started painting for like maybe half an hour. I think consistency is key, but also taking your time. That really counts and it really makes the painting come more alive, but it just makes it so perfect in a way where you don't have to rush through it. So
Yeah,
that took a while for me to learn is to take your time, not, you know, the saying goes, Rome wasn't built in a day. So,
right.
yeah.
So, James, if I asked you what would be the dream, we all have dreams of things that if we just said, if all this could work out and I could be doing what I love every day, have you thought what that would look like down the road for you if the dream came true?
Oh wow. I mean, for me, it would be great traveling, you know, selling my work in different states, getting paid for it, coming back,
Hmm.
you know, helping my family with expenses, not even have to worry financially about
Hmm.
money.
Hmm.
Um, you know, having a nice house, not a mansion to live in. Notice I said not a mansion. I'm not really a big
Hmm.
car guy or a mansion or materialistic guy, but
Yeah.
to live comfortably, but to know that I made it.
Hmm.
You know, I made the American dream come alive in my life and to inspire those that are going through that struggle from point A to point B.
Hmm. Well,
That's
not
me.
only the fact that you've
Yeah,
made it, but the fact that you're also bringing joy to other people by the work that you do.
exactly.
It's pretty powerful. Right now, the pieces that you do, and you have probably some you've already sold, are you developing ways in which that gets put out? Do you just still do kind of the social media, Facebook type of Instagram postings? What's that look like if and is there a thought of expanding that in any way where people could access your work more readily?
Yes, I am definitely involved in the social media aspect, not as much because I do work full time. So I'm trying to juggle those two things at the same time, but I do have a YouTube channel as well. I also have a Etsy account where I, you know, just recently opened up products where I can put my art on sweaters, shirts, and mugs and things like that. So it's so I have a lot of things going on, but yeah.
What would be the best place? Someone watching this or listening to this and said, "Hey, I'd love to see James's work a little bit." What would be? Is that going to one of your sites or your SD? And we'll give out some of your contact information.
My Instagram, I think my Instagram is the most popular. I have over probably 1,000 followers on there.
Hmm.
I do a lot of posting on Instagrams more than I do on TikTok because it's older. It's been around longer than TikTok has. So my Instagram is JSB Artist 38. You can find a lot of my work there. You can also find the process of developing that painting from, you know, point A to point B
Oh,
to
cool.
C. So I like to show the process from a blank canvas to, you know, many videos of me doing the sketch of the work and then finishing the product itself or the painting itself.
Mhm.
So that way people see the whole thing through
Right.
and it's a journey at the same time.
Yeah,
So
and that's always fun just to see a blank canvas turn into something pretty
exactly.
cool. Well, James, you have done a lot independently to get to where you are. Certainly, you've had some help along the way, but you've
Right.
really battled these things, like, in this world that maybe initially was isolated, but now you found your niche and realized that you've got a special talent that others are starting to see as well. I think too that a platform, whether it's a podcast like this or just other means, that also gets a chance to connect people that maybe have some resources and support that can take you to the next level. You've now arrived in a pretty powerful way, but also have the ability to even thrive more. If you could ask anybody that happens to hear this or see this out there of assistance that you would need, would it be like building a web page platform? Would it be like understanding the business model of how to sell art? Like, would there be anything specific that probably somebody could reach out to you and give you even that more of a lift and boost to launch your paintings further?
Yeah, I think it's all the above.
Hmm.
Because I am a one-man show at the moment. I'm doing everything myself. I mean, I pretty much am I'm this is you're looking at it pretty
You're
much.
you're
So
the enterprise, right?
yeah, I'm my own CEO, so to speak.
That's
So
right.
I don't have a team behind me. It's just me. But I never really used to ask for help, but now I'm asking for help and any ideas or just teamwork make the dream work. You know what I mean? So I think, you know, having people to help you is really special, and it's a blessing as well because they see potential and they can take you further than what you can do on your own.
That is well said. Well, your vulnerability when you first posted that painting on Facebook and realized that that was a powerful step continues even now when you're talking about, vulnerability of not knowing certain things, but having people jump in and being able to, again, give you a boost to where you want to go. What would be, if you're talking either to your younger self or somebody that maybe is experiencing, because I think as we've mentioned before, a lot of our stories are more similar to others than we think they are. We just don't realize it at the time because we don't share those when we're younger. Especially, what would be a piece of advice that you would give to somebody that's maybe going through some struggles, or at least trying to understand their value and their identity and what they're striving to do? What would you say to them?
I would say just despite whatever anything that's going on around you, the circumstances, what people are saying, don't give up. Believe in all your heart that you can accomplish anything you put your mind to. There's, patience is key, but also consistency. Again, it goes a long way. To me, it's just really following your dreams despite what even family members may say. You know in your heart where you need to go and just focus on that and, don't be afraid to fail and just in a way, just immerse yourself in whatever you're gifted in.
Those are great inspirational words of advice. I appreciate you sharing that. An
Absolutely.
old saying, James, that it's not where you start, it's where you finish. And I think that's
Yeah.
tells your tale a little bit as well. That that struggle when you first came out of the womb of being a pound and a half is
Uh-huh.
all erased in the magic that you're creating on your canvases. And so I really appreciate you joining us today and getting a chance to share your story. I think it's very powerful. It says a lot
Absolutely.
about you and your determination. And I'm excited to hopefully see this launch even further and get a
Me
chance.
too.
James Brooks paintings in places, across the world, perhaps, right? As you continue.
Yeah, that'd be great. It's funny because the manager was joking. He's like, "We're still going to be here, but James is going to be traveling and selling his artwork." And I'm like, "Hey, I'll take it. Sure."
Yep. You
You know,
manifest those thoughts and those dreams, and you
exactly.
continue to
Yeah.
work hard, you can make them happen. So, well, I appreciate you joining us today and getting a chance to share your
Thank
story.
you so much. I really appreciate it. And again, it's a true honor to be here. So thank you so much.
That wraps up our episode number 7 with James. And this again can be found on our Spotify account as well as our YouTube. Get a chance to share those, like those. James would love to have his story told to others as well, as we would too. And look forward to seeing you for our next guest next week. Thanks for joining.